Welcome. My name is Jesper, and today I will be guiding you through what gear is, how it works, and how to optimize your character in the game Black Clover M. First off, I want to explain the concept of gear. So of course, you go into your mages, your characters, whatever you want to call them, and go over here to the gear tab, and you can see visually that you have what is called gear. Gear is broken down into sets. What a set is these little icons that you can see next to each piece of gear means that it is part of that particular set. For example, if I go to this piece of gear, this is part of the defense set. It provides plus defense and plus 20% defense. Other sets have specific bonuses, no two sets being the same. And now that we've gotten that done, what I'm going to go through is exactly what character stats are and how gear plays into that. So you see all these stat bonuses and effects that this gear has, and also the additional stats on top of the set bonuses. Now I'm going to tell you what each stat does and how that benefits your character. So if you come over here to the left side, you will see all the stats for your character and exactly how that is applied from gear you're wearing currently. So in this square is what I have equipped to my character Asta right now, as you can see. This black text on the left, the numbers are what his base stats are, and then the numbers on the right are what he gets beneficially from wearing that gear, either from set bonuses or the additional stat increases. First off is HP. Pretty basic. It's just your health points. That is how much health your character has before he dies, she. Next is your attack. This is your basic physical damage. Your basic attacks will most likely be based off of attack, as well as characters like Asta, who doesn't have any magic attack. All of his attacks will be based off of physical attack. So when you see ATK, that is just your physical base damage. MATK, or magical attack, is your magical attack value. So for other characters, let's see, I'll go over here to Yami. As you can see, he has a magical attack stat. This will be your most skills that you will see will have magical attack. This can be combined with attack if a skill uses both, and most skills will tell you. That's for another video. It's a whole different explanation. But magic attack is essentially another type of attack. Defense, pretty basic once again. It is a defensive stat before damage is dealt to your health directly. So your defense rating is what is between your health and someone attacking you. That is all defense is. They have to get through your defense to be able to damage your health. And as you can see with my character here, his defense is only 4,243. 99% of attacks, if the character is high enough level appropriate to who you're facing, your attack will be much greater than your defense. You are not meant to entirely defend your character from dying strictly off of defense. This is just to remove a little bit of the damage that is done to your character. It's a great stat to have, especially if your character is dying quickly in combat. You might want to take a look at your defense and see if it's high enough. Next is your accuracy. We will actually come back to this because it's a little more complicated than the others, and I have to explain a different stat for you to understand this one. Next is crit rate. This is the chance of critical hit on attack. So this is the percentage chance that you have when launching an attack to land a critical hit. It is a percentage chance, it's not a value. This is your crit rate. It does not imply damage. It is implied that it's a chance of you hitting a critical. The crit damage is what is bonused on top of your damage when you do hit a crit. When you hit a critical attack, the crit damage is the percent bonus that will be applied on top of your damage that you do to the enemy character. Just for example, let's say I land all my attack on a character. It had 0 defense of any sort. If I take this number and multiply it by 50%, the number that I come out with, so roughly that's going to be about almost 9,000 damage, will be applied on top of this 17,000 damage. So as you can see, that can be quite beneficial, and some characters rely on crit rate so that way they can actually deal effective damage. Next is your crit resistance. Let me go back to Asta here. This is the percentage chance that you will lower the opponent attacking that character has on dealing a crit attack on your character. So if Yami was to attack my Asta, this 3.6% would lower his crit rate by that much percent. Granted, it's not a very high stat, at least on this character. First of all, I'm not really shooting for that on this character. That would be something someone that plays a tank character would want to have just to be able to withstand damage. But it is effective if you're seeing that you get hit with critical attacks a lot. Might want to check out crit resistance. Next is your speed. Every character has speed, no matter what. This is actually fairly simple. The higher your speed, the faster your character attacks. So since this is a turn-based game, only one character can attack at one time. So this means that if your character has, for example, a 103 for their speed, and another character only has a 100 for their speed, your character with the higher speed value will attack first. There are some skills that other characters have, other mages, that enhance your speed based on different situations, but at a flat rate, your speed is what makes you attack first. Especially in player versus player combat, this is a highly beneficial stat to have, and especially for attacker classes like Asta is here, you want high speed so that way they can deal damage and hopefully kill a character before they get a chance to attack you. But endurance is the defense against penetration. Penetration ignores defense completely. So this is how much damage is being dealt directly to your health. This endurance is the only guard against penetration. There has to be a balance. So 106 value for this if I was attacking my own character, which is impossible, but regardless. This 57 would be subtracted from this 106. Pretty simple. even though it kind of doesn't work the same as most of the other stats. Now, damage resistance coincides with accuracy. Accuracy is damage that's also trying to be dealt directly to your health. However, damage resistance affects that the same way endurance affects penetration. So, similar situation, but different type for each. It's a little confusing at first, but when you remember that when you're thinking about these penetration and accuracy stats, that they're their own type of damage, it's fairly easy to consider. You can't just do damage directly to a character. I mean, you could just build out penetration to be absurdly high, and you could kill any character you wanted. That's not very balanced. The game is going for balanced. So you have to be able to have a defense against any kind of damage. Hence the endurance and the damage resistance. Now, with all of that being said, let's go to the actual grid. Let's take this mage for example, Solid Silva. He is an SR rarity character. He only has a 5x5 square space, 5x4, excuse me, square open for slots. And as you can see by these little symbols next to the gear, this is how many slots they take up when you fit them into your gear set. Let me equip this and I'll show you. So you can drag the equipment around and it'll show you where it can fit. If I try to put it in slots that aren't available, it'll highlight red to show that you cannot put it there. If I fit it in there, you can move it over, shift it over, or you can drag it, but it will fit wherever you place it. You equip that, and all of the stats change according to what stats the gear has on it. Now, taking this into consideration, you have to think, okay, gear has slots. I'm going to have to optimize a way to fit as many gear as I can in this grid, and also maximize the benefits that I obtain from this gear. I would talk about the upgrading process to unlock more gear slots, but that's fairly straightforward. The game explains that for you. Going back to Nozel Silva, one that has the whole grid available, you can see that this gear has an orientation of a 2x6 grid. This is the most standard size for a main weapon of any gear set. No matter if it is defense, same orientation. No matter if it is, let's find another one. No matter if it is health, same orientation. Every gear set will have a 2x6 gear set orientation in that list of equipment. Now for higher rarity gear, these take up more gear slots. So let's find one like this, for example. If I come here, that takes up a 6x2, and as you can see, it looks like this gear slot, but rotated on its side. This gear slot is not always a 6x2, but the higher quality it is, it will be. So when it is ultra rare, this UR at the top, it will be a 6x2 slot. But if you come back down here, Okay, so SSR is also a 6x2. And then I come all the way down here, equip that, it is a 2x2. So you can get away with fitting more gear into your slots when you are lower rarity or using lower rarity gear. But the higher rarity you go, you're going to have to optimize your gear sets according to what you're shooting for more specifically than just throwing on a bunch of stats. Granted, when you get to a higher rarity, it gets more beneficial to have fewer sets. So let's go back to Asta. He has a full gear set. I'm not going to say that this is fully optimized, but this is as good as I could get at the moment. This is the best gear I've gotten. This is why this is my most powerful mage. So I'll use him for an example. The optimal orientation that I've found, or what's quote unquote the meta, is to do, especially with higher rarity gear sets, is to do 3 sets of 2 and just throw on another piece of gear that has the stat you want. So for Asta, I'm going for base attack, so I just picked a gear piece with an increased attack. Given that information, let's dive into the actual substats for each item. Each gear piece will have substats. The rarity will determine how many substats there are. If I go down to a SR, there's only 2 substats. But if I go back up here to a UR, there's 3 substats, and LR, I believe, has 4. So you can rely on getting more attributes from gear the higher rarity you go. Now, it's not cut and dry what you want to do with all of your characters. I'm using Asta as an example because he does not have any magic attack and he's an attacker. So this narrows down what I'm looking for greatly. Each gear that you select, you want to accentuate what stat they're focusing on. Asta doesn't have magic attack, so I'm looking at base attack. And I'm looking at base attack because he's an attacker. His role is to deal damage. You want that damage to be great. So there's the primary focus, which is the attack stat. There's also the secondary focuses that are crit rate and crit damage, and also speed. I would consider that third, but you do want that to be high at the same time, just so he's not slow. You want him to attack first. But I focus on attack, crit rate, and crit damage for an attacker first. And yes, you do want speed as well. This one is dealing more magic attack and attack. Granted, this character, I don't care about magic attack, but this base 7% increase on attack is better than this flat rate of attack, because a percentage is going to be a greater number than whatever value the flat rate gives you. So this attack is 2%. 2% of a magic attack, or of an attack that I have on this character, is going to be 443 attack. That's a substat for this. Now let's look at this. This is a 45 attack substat. Compared to a 2% increase for the other gear stat, this attack substat, this flat rate of 45, is nothing. So when you see a 1%, 1.52%, 2% increase for your attack, that's always going to be better than a flat rate of 45. But those percentages will only come from a substat. This main stat is shown as a little symbol underneath the gear. That will always be a flat rate because you can't have a percent increase without a base value. You always want to build up your attack stat before you can get a percentage increase. So the developers thought of that and made sure that you always had a stat to increase. Now, for your health, I'm still using an attack main stat for my gear piece with an attack substat and defense because I don't want my character to die. It's pretty straightforward. Each class is going to have a different type of stat that they want to accentuate. Let's use Mimosa for an example. Based on her attacks, grants the ally with the lowest HP ratio, HP recovery, equal to 150% of own magic attack. That means that her healing is scaling off of her magic attack. Granted, she's a healer, you would think, oh, she needs a lot of health. Healers in other games scale based off of health. For the most part, you'd be correct. But her attacks, or her healing, scales off of her magic attack. So, with that being said, this little symbol right here is what I'm looking for. I want as much magic attack as possible because it will heal my other characters faster. Same goes for tanks. If you have a skill that increases max HP or increases defense for the whole team or that character, you want to focus your gear sets on that stat. Not all characters will be as easy to ascertain what they're looking for. Debuffers are a little funny, but from what I've surmised from my experience with debuffers is that it's kind of a mixture between attack and magic attack with also damage resistance. So you want to throw in a little penetration because you want to penetrate through their defense, so accuracy and penetration. And you also want damage because debuffers are applying debuffs to the opponent. You're applying status effects. Let's look at her attacks. This increases damage dealt. Attack plus 5%, magic attack plus 5%. So, with that in mind, I want to increase her attack and magic attack as much as possible, so that way she can benefit off of her own skills. Same thing goes for a character that buffs his own attack. Let's look at Jack the Ripper. If you look at his stats, not that one. Increases his own speed and his own crit rate. So this guy increases his own crit rate and his own speed and his own penetration. So you want to focus on all of that. Try to get as many of those equally spread out as you can. Play with the numbers. Maybe you want to try to increase the crit rate. If you can get that crit rate up to 100%, he will crit every attack that you do. That's a win. He's doing a massive amount of damage. Find those stats that you're looking for and focus on those when gearing out your character. Looking at other gear, there is gear that I did not show because it's a little more self-explanatory, like the pitch black sight. grants HP recovery equal to 10% of max HP upon defeating an enemy. I mean, it literally tells you exactly what's happening. And grants lifesteal, tells you exactly what's happening. So I didn't explain every gear set that there is, but that is the generalization of exactly what you want to do for each different kind of character. Now, it's going to be up to you to determine what is optimal for each character. I could explain them all, but first of all, I don't have them all. And second, it's going to be up to preference. I mean, there is a PvP league in this game. It's on you to try to make your character optimized. Can't give it all to you. But before we leave, I will give you a little guide to the dungeons where you can obtain gear. And as you can see, there are different levels with different recommended power. When you first start off, you're going to get basic sets of each different kind based on what dungeon you are running, and each dungeon has different stats it'll give you. What I want you to take away from this little portion is the goal of getting to where you see this little star next to the gear set. This star is the rare set, if you want to call that. It is what I showed earlier. Attack, magic attack, flat rates. You go to the enhanced version, it's attack percentages and magic attack percentage increase. That is always going to be beneficial. You're shooting for, there are 15 levels, it tells you right there. You're shooting for at least level 10 to start building out your characters, so you can enhance your gear by going to this upgrade. You can enhance your gear, but I would only go, as you can see here, to +4 on anything below ultra rare. Even on some ultra rares, if you don't think it's a good gear piece and you're just throwing it on your character for the moment, don't upgrade it past +4. It's going to get expensive. You have these materials that are kind of hard to get until you get further in the game, and even then you're not going to have an unlimited amount. Try to save your upgrade materials for when you get ultra rare gear. That way you can upgrade those to +8 and you unlock all of the stats. You can also enchant gear, which I also wouldn't do. I would explain it in this video, but I don't want you to get ahead of me. Just leave enchanting alone for now. Do the bare minimum to complete the early challenges you get, but just leave this alone until further on in the game, because you only really want to increase your gear that you're planning on keeping forever. So in all reality, you should really only be enchanting LR gear. But that is all I have for you now. I hope you understand more clearly what you're going for gear sets, what substats to look for, what main stats to look for, and also how to orient your gear sets within your grid. It's all based on preference. I go for 2 sets of 2 pieces equipped, but you can go for more, you can go for less. It's really up to you. Thank you for watching.